guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Homeowner Association Bus Refused to Pick Up Children with Disabilities, We Sued Them in Court and Won. Let me start this by just saying that I hate when a homeowner association is able to get away with doing things that hurt others. They didn't realize the force that they messed with, though they decided they were going to mess around with my sister and her kid. Now my niece is 9 years old and has several disabilities that make her day-to-day life already harder than most 9-year-old kids. She is both developmentally disabled and needs to wear leg braces, so of course safety is a concern. She takes the bus to school, and instead of the normal bus stop outside of the development where they live, she gets the bus to pick her up right in front of the house. The reason that they do this is for safety, and that's why it was put into her school IEP, which covers everything she needs in order to have a safe and good school environment. I couldn't imagine anyone wanting to have a problem with her getting picked up from there. But apparently the homeowner association didn't like the buses on the streets in the morning. I'll talk about their supposed reasonings later, but I really think they just didn't want to hear the noise of a bus for 2 minutes in the morning. Anyway, they called the school board and ended up getting the bus out of the development, and my sister needing to walk my niece to a busy road and keep her from getting hurt until the bus showed up. We were all extremely mad and kept telling the school that it went against the HOA rules to not follow her IEP. If it seems odd how involved I was with this, we have a very close family and also not a small one, so my niece had a good number of people fighting for her. We ended up getting her bus back for the last month of that school year. During the summer, though, the homeowner association was going to try and pull another stunt to stop the buses come September. They held a meeting and made a vote to not allow any buses in the district. So now, instead of a complaint, they had in the actual bylaws for the community. It turns out, though, that we were not the only people angry about this and wanting to do something about it. My niece wasn't the only special needs child in that development, and there were 2 other families especially struggling when they took away the buses the first time. They just didn't know to fight back and were spending months having an extremely hard time getting their kids to school. One of which was a kid who was physically disabled, and getting her in and out of the car and then onto the bus was such a struggle that some mornings she ended up missing the bus altogether and needing to drive her daughter to the school, causing her to be late for work. The other was an autistic boy that, while he was able to walk to the alternate bus stop, the traffic on it became dangerous for him. He wanted to run into the traffic because he couldn't understand that it wasn't safe, and his mother spent every morning worried that her son was going to get into the traffic and run over. 3 families were always better than 1, though, and we brought them into the little fight we had created. We decided that a lawsuit was the only thing that was going to wake the homeowner association up and took them to court. We knew that the bylaws they created were technically allowed, but would they really be seen as more important than the safety of disabled children? Keep in mind, we were not fighting for the buses to be allowed to go door to door in the neighborhood. Just for the kids with an IEP that needed it to be able to achieve that service. Still, we ended up getting support by other parents that weren't affected directly by it but thought what they were doing to our kids was horrible. When I say we started a mini revolution, I meant it. The local news ever came to cover the lawsuit that was happening because of how crazy it was starting to get. The homeowner association had a lawyer of their own, but one of the parents in the neighborhood actually was a lawyer and agreed to represent the case for free. My sister almost cried at how happy she was. The community seemed to just be rallying behind her for her kids' sake. Now keep in mind, the homeowner association definitely had their own side of people, and while ours came from different areas, their side all lived in the development and had more of a leg to stand on because of it. Their lawyer argued that the buses were causing a significant wear and tear to the roads and that it made more sense for buses to pick kids up outside of the development. He said that since it was now in the bylaws, it was perfectly legal for them to ask the school to create that new bus stop and stop entering the community. Our lawyer argued back that the safety of the children outweighs the fact that the roads would get damaged. Even if they created this rule in the bylaws, the federal and state laws of the IEP outweighed it, and the buses had every right to enter into the development to get my niece and the other disabled kids. It turns out that our lawyer seemed to scare theirs, and suddenly they wanted to create an agreement. It turns out that their lawyer told them the homeowner association insurance wasn't going to cover his cost if this went any further in court. He recommended that they get rid of the rule and allow the buses back into the development. The HOA was not happy about this, but since they were going to lose their lawyer, they didn't have a choice and ended up getting rid of the rule and allowing the buses back into the development to pick up the kids. They clearly weren't happy about it and were still trying to create bylaws that would indirectly affect the buses, like no loud vehicles allowed before certain hours of the day. But none of those ended up sticking, and my niece was able to finally get on the bus from the safety of her own sidewalk. The fact that my family and the family of the other kids were supported by other members of the school made me extremely happy, because even though they weren't directly affected, they knew it was wrong, and the increased voices helped us get it the attention it needed. The next story is titled, OP's landlord is having loud sex in a communal greenhouse, where both OP and their young daughter can see and hear everything. This is England. I live in a building that is split into 3 flats. The ground floor is lived in by the landlord, who owns the building, with the upstairs split into 2 flats. One faces the road and the other, mine, overlooks the garden. We all have access to the garden. A few months ago, the landlord added a glass greenhouse sort of thing to the garden. The roof is entirely transparent and is at an angle facing my window. He originally stated it was to be for all of us to use for drying laundry instead of bringing damp into the house, and set up a dryer and dehumidifier in there. It seemed great. In the past few weeks, he has however moved a mattress out there and has been lying on it in the nude and having sex there. The roof has an exhaust port thing that points at my window, so if I'm airing out my flat with it open a crack, I get a direct delivery of loud sex sounds. Is there anything I can do? It is only my flat who can see and hear this, it isn't visible from the road. I tried bringing it up, but he shrugged it off and said just don't look. I have a young child though, so this is just awkward. Edit. I have decided it is best to write a physical letter to him emphasizing my concerns about my daughter accidentally seeing them. I don't want to sour my relationship with him, as he has been an excellent landlord otherwise. I am hoping that a letter will both be seen by his partner, so she might stop, and will make it clear that there is more to my worry than just prudishness. I will post an update once something changes, whether it be to report he has promised to stop, or to get some reassurance on contacting police as the next step. Update. Last week I posted needing advice regarding a situation with my landlord having sex in a greenhouse entirely visible from my window. Because I really did not want to cause a serious issue by getting police involved unnecessarily, I decided to first try a proper letter. I printed out a nice letter basically saying that while I wouldn't care nearly as much if we were all adults, I do have a small child and I am very uncomfortable with her being able to have a bird's eye view of the goings-on. This seems to have done the trick. Apparently, the landlord and wife/partner were not aware of just how visible it was from my window. They have both apologized profusely and she seemed totally scandalized. I let them know I wasn't angry but that it was very awkward with a child, and they essentially said that they'd been going stir-crazy with lockdown and hadn't really been thinking clearly about their actions. The landlord has moved the mattress out of the greenhouse entirely, replacing it with a small table and chairs. I have only spotted them out there having breakfast since. It is obviously early days, but I feel that this has probably fixed the issue. I am also happy that I have not ruined the relationship with my landlord. They said they had mostly forgotten I had a child at all, as she is so quiet despite them living below, so I think this is about as positive an outcome as I could have hoped for. Thank you to everyone here who offered advice and made me confident that I was in the right to push it further. I feel silly as I should have thought to send a letter myself first, but I thought telling him directly would be as effective. Additional context from comments. I ran into him when I was picking up a package and he was in the hall. I kind of awkwardly laughed and said I thought you'd want to know I can see and hear you out there from my window, and he kind of laughed and said oh dear, you shouldn't look then, while laughing. Then we kind of awkwardly stood there and he said you know you're welcome to do whatever out there too, then scurried away. I hoped that would be the end of it, but they were out there again, so I was starting to get very upset. I found the entire subject very embarrassing and awkward to bring up, so I think I was awkwardly laughing when I mentioned it to him. I wasn't sure whether it was his legal right to be doing that out there as it is his property. I am thinking more now that his response was more embarrassment than truly brushing it off, together with not realizing just how clear the view was. From inside the greenhouse, you can see my window but not inside of my flat. Because I am looking down on them though, it is much more visible. As for the letter, I popped it into their postbox, so I'm not sure who got it out and read it, but they both came up to my door that evening with a box of chocolates and apologized. We had a nice chat and they seemed genuinely sorry. The next story is titled, I Caught My Neighbor's Son Stealing My Underwear. Moved into the apartment at the start of January. Since then I have been convinced that someone is stealing my underwear, bra, etc. Every floor has a pair of washer and dryer units, and since moving in I have had almost a dozen different things just disappear from the wash or dryer. The room is so tiny that there is nowhere to sit, aside from sitting on top of one of the machines, so it makes it very hard to wait for it. 2 weeks ago, I went and bought a bunch of new things, and when I went to go remove stuff from the washer I noticed that several things I had just bought went missing. Armed with this and the fact it was early Saturday morning, I went to our landlord and she was able to tell me during the 35 minutes of washing the only person who entered was my next door neighbor's son. Now at this point I was furious and confronted the parents. The parents called me a liar and basically told me off. They absolutely refused to believe me, however since confronting them I have had nothing go missing since then. Today I put laundry on and started cleaning my unit. When I went to go drop trash off, I checked the laundry and discovered our neighbor's son going the dryer I was using. I again confronted the parents, and they immediately started screaming at me for harassing their son and threatened to call the police on me for harassing their son and threatened to sue me for slandering their son by implying he is a pervert. My question is, does this count as theft and can I go to the police and file a complaint? I don't want my clothing back, at this point. Update. A long story short, I went to station, made a report, gave them all the details I had along with showing them a copy of the security camera footage of both incidents that my landlord was kind enough to send to me. The police officer didn't seem to really care from my impression, but he made a report. No one to my knowledge ever came out or anything. Anyways, today the father and son came to my door today and he basically apologized for accusing me of lying, and made his son apologize to me, awkward, and gave me a bag consisting of my clothing. I told him I didn't particularly want to that stuff again, and was going to throw it out, just the idea of keeping it made me disgusted. So, the father kindly gave me the cash value for a rough estimate of the items and then some, then told me if stuff goes missing to come to him first. I am satisfied, I guess. The entire situation seems extremely uncomfortable and awkward. The last story is titled, I don't want to be that neighbor, but I had no choice. My daughter was out looking at the berry bushes after school and came in a little angry. I asked her what happened, and she said, "Oh, that neighbor again. The big kid. She's 12, and I'm unsure of his age, but he looks at least 15. I said, "What now?" That's when I noticed the smell, but before I could ask any more questions, she started talking. She explained that she was out looking at our berry bushes, and he told her to get the F away from his property. There's a fence, and it's jagged at the top, so I know she wasn't that close to it, and mind her effing business. She ignored him at first, but he kept yelling and cussing at her. So, she told him to close your cake-eating face because she was looking for berries to pick. Apparently, he didn't like her explanation, because he went inside, and when he came back out, he had a cup. He threw piss on her. Piss, yes. Yes, I'm sure. I smelled her. It's in her hair, and on her clothes. Even her shoes. Thankfully she was wearing old shoes, but still. I called the police, and they told me to have her wait to wash up, because they can test if it's urine. They showed up within 5 minutes, shocking. The police just left. They swabbed my daughter in 4 places, to test if it's actually urine. If it is, this little ducker is getting in big legal trouble, or so I hope. I did tell them that I want to press charges. My daughter is currently in the shower. I have sprayed her clothes and shoes with Shout. Hopefully it works to get the smell out. I messaged the father on Facebook, told him what happened, and he blocked me. How mature. No wonder your son acts the way he does. I'm so frustrated. There's a wooden fence about 3/4 of the way down the property line, and the rest is old nasty rusted metal. The metal is where our berry bushes are. The fence is not mine and I cannot replace it myself. Edit. I'd like to thank everyone for the laundry tips. The Shout left a bit of smell, but I soaked the clothes in vinegar for 15 minutes, and the smell is gone. However, the fashion boots are going out with the trash. Fake suede doesn't wash well. Update. 3 officers left just now. I was informed that after they had swabbed my daughter's clothes, shoes and hair, they went to my neighbor's house and took the kid to the hospital to have his urine and blood tested for disease, and let's face it, probably drugs, too, which all came back negative. Thank God. He's had a psych evaluation and they didn't really specify anything about that. However, this kid is 19 years old. He's my neighbor's brother, not their son. Neighbors took him in at 16 because the male neighbor's mother couldn't deal with him anymore. Ducking, imagine that, eh? The officers couldn't, say what's going on with him, but he's in an institution right now, being further evaluated, and they urged me to still press charges if that's what my daughter and I want to do. But that likely even if we don't, after his stay in the institution, he will be jailed, and is facing charges from the state. Sexual assault on a minor. I don't know how it was that, because my daughter swears she didn't see his penis. Assault on a minor and harassment. Editing to add that I have ordered several cameras for my yard. Final update. So, I got a call from my lawyer right before dinner. The 19-year-old neighbor who threw piss on my 12-year-old daughter has been released from the institution for several weeks now. He doesn't appear to have any kind of mental illness. Seriously? He was taken straight to the jail from the institution, and he did confess. He's been charged with second-degree sexual assault on a minor. I'm being told that my daughter doesn't need to testify in court because he confessed, but she can give her statement via video if she wants to, which she already has. He's facing up to 1 year in jail and/or 2 years probation. He's not allowed to be within 1,000 feet of her for the next 10 years. Meaning the disgusting guy can't be our neighbor again. Wish granted. Thank for listening.